Good morning, everyone. Lawrence Fleming again. These videos all start the same because I just jump on the path right next to my campsite and take off. But they're not all recorded the same day. All right. Well, my topic for today would be, if you didn't tell me you were a Christian, would I be able to figure it out? And we're going to get into that in a bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about some headlines. It's going to be a cold winter, and I keep stressing that because a lot of people are going to be without power because it's been in the world, because it's been destroyed. Russia's still knocking out power plants in Ukraine. Russia has, I have a RV pulling out, squeaky brakes. That's a Class A, it's a big one. They were just leaving the dumping station. So I'll let them get out of sight. Going up the hill. That's why I'm glad I don't have one of those. I don't have to pay the gas bill. And speaking of that, that's what we've got as a problem here in the United States. As of this time, if they haven't changed their numbers, we've got about 2 weeks worth of diesel left. Yeah. Diesel runs all of our commercial vehicles. You want to order something, you may not get it delivered. And I will say that after the election, our gas prices are going to triple. Almost overnight. Depends on who wins. I cannot see how the right is going to win this election. It's not raining, but it rained last night, so the slightest wind shakes the leaves and the rain comes down. Okay. So we're almost out of diesel. Fuel oil is over twice what it was last year. If you've tried to buy wood, it's the same problem. People are going to be going after this stuff big time, and it's probably going to run out. So I would get what you can. The two things that you're going to need to get through this winter and through these next few months, well, three things: food, shelter, and power for either heat or cold, depending on what time of the year it is. Obviously you need water too, but that's easier to get. Mother Nature supplies enough of that. Now in some areas, our dictatorial governments have come out and said that you can't collect rainwater because that belongs to them. It is totally absurd, but if they can come up with a way to enforce it, the government wants you under their thumb so that you can't move unless they say so. And anything you do, they can take. Anything you make, they can take. You're not going to be working for yourself anymore. You're going to be working for the government. Along that line, the stocks for Uber and Lyft just plummeted because the government said that it's going to implement California's, I don't know, what is it, A, B something or other. I don't remember the name of it. But it's basically, you can't be an independent worker. you have to be an employee of somebody, so that way they can tax you. If you're an independent worker, they don't know what all you're making. They can't control you. You can't be put under their thumb. So California, the test bed of everything evil in the world, well, they've got the bill for the government that they're going to adopt. So Uber and Lyft are going to basically go out of business. And any other entrepreneurs are going to go out of business. They can't stay in business because the government's going to make it illegal. So, for a little while, they'll probably go underground. And just like everything else the government tries to do, they're not going to do enforcement well. They've cracked down on drugs, and yet you can get drugs anywhere. I don't and don't recommend them, but I'm just telling you the facts. If I wanted drugs, I could find out where to get them. So they can't stop it. They haven't been able to stop the Bible, and even in countries where it's totally against the law, it's still prevalent. Mankind cannot stop God, but these are just birth pains. The harlot is not completely in charge yet, not fully. But for a little while, the harlot and the beast work together. So he's got to get down here, and we're restraining him. That's why we've got to be out of here soon. I don't know how long it's going to take to get us out of here. We don't have a date. People are still trying to predict. Dr. Barry, on his last video, talked about this time frame lining up with the flood. And we're told that these are going to be like the days of the flood. So it could be. It's another one of those, this could be a good day to have a rapture. And I think he's picking his around the 11th. Somebody else that I've seen has a slightly different calendar, and they start it tonight. Well, probably around the 1st. I'm going to talk about it in my live broadcast, which if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it, because this is going to come out after my live broadcast. It's where I'm going to talk about Halloween, what it means, why we shouldn't be afraid of it. As with pretty much every holiday that we've got, Satan comes in and distorts it. It starts off Christian, and then it gets distorted. So if you want to celebrate the roots of it, it's okay. The Celtic background for it is where we get all the pagan rituals from. But those are all over Christmas too, and Easter and all kinds of stuff. It's just, if Satan can convolute the waters, he does that real well. That's one of his best things he does. All right. We're told in, is it Luke? It's not Matthew, it's got to be Luke, about not being ignorant that the mystery that we're looking at is only a mystery to those that don't believe in Jesus. That God's going to blind their eyes so they can't see. I'll cover this at the end. So you don't want to be blinded to what's going on. Everything is very simple. God set up a covenant with rules. He never goes against his covenants. He never breaks rules. He's consistent. So he satisfied the blood for atonement rule by coming down here in person in the form of Jesus. The Jews rejected him and put him on a cross and killed him. Don't blame the Jews. They did their part in God's new covenant that Jesus gave to us. All right. So if you're not blinded to what's going on, like the world is, if I were to follow you around for the day, that proverbial fly on the wall, but I'd be able to tell from your life and what you do that you're a Christian. If you blend into the world and you behave like the rest of the world does because you don't want to seem like a weirdo, like a Jesus freak, if you blend into the world, then you're no different than the world. We're told in this, song about this, to know we're Christians by our love. Do we see love coming from you? Do we see any of the other gifts of the Spirit? Can we tell that you've got armor on to be able to handle the things that you're running into? You've got to have strength to wear the armor. And you've got to have the Word of God in your heart so that you can use it when necessary. Do you talk to people about God? Sometimes it's hard to figure out who you can talk to. The key to it is start the conversation. If it falls on deaf ears, take it to somebody else. We're told to go to the, door to door, and if we're invited in and they want to hear about it, about God, that's great. Talk to them. But you got to have some knowledge to talk to them about Him. And if they totally reject you, don't let the door hit you on the way out and wipe the dust off. They're not ready. Now, believe me, the whole world is going to be ready eventually. They're either going to harden their hearts like Pharaoh, or they're going to be ready. More people are going to come to Christ during this, quote, tribulation time than any other time in the world. Be a part of that. This isn't a game where we're keeping score. If somebody doesn't accept your offer to talk about God, and do it right. Don't do it disrespectfully. Don't go up to the cashier with 10 people behind you and just sit there and want to talk about God. You can just get a sentence or two out. You can leave by saying, have a blessed day. But if there's nobody behind you and you get your opening statement in and they reply back with something that you can reply to, carry on the conversation as long as you can. All our preachers that have been doing this all their life, they've gotten used to it. And they forget sometimes the first time you go out, it's hard. Well, the first time you do anything by yourself where there's risk involved, it's hard. I remember the first time I got to drive my dad's pickup. I don't know, 13, 14, something like that. He said, go bring the pickup over here. I had never done that before. I've driven regular cars, but this was a four-wheel drive pickup with a clutch. I didn't know how to work a clutch. I'd seen him do it, so I pushed the clutch in, started it, and then just let the clutch all the way out. I don't know if you've ever done that, but it has a hard time coming up to speed. You got to let it out slowly. And then you got to know when to switch gears. I never even shifted. I just kept it in probably second gear because it was on flat ground. So you learn. And I guess that's what he expected me to do. I remember the first time I soloed in an airplane. Similar type nervousness, but I knew what to do because we went through the checklist over and over again. But you don't cover everything. But I was able to get up and land. This was in the early days of the Microsoft Flight Simulator, so I'd already practiced it at the airport, knowing what frequencies to use, all the stuff to keep track of. It's not complicated. You just got to follow the protocols everywhere you go. Pretty soon, probably about 3 or 4 weeks later, I took off, and I didn't know that I was running on a flat tire. Not until I went to land. I'm in a 152, I think, at this time. Maybe it was a 172. I think I'd already graduated to that. And you go to land on one good tire and one flat tire, and it wants to turn in the direction of the flat tire because it's dragging. So I powered it up and did a go around. Called the tower, tell them what I'm doing. So then I had to figure out how to land on one tire. It didn't take me long to figure out what the problem was because I thought about it. What would cause it to do that? It's either stuck or it's flat. Either case, I've got a bad tire. Fortunately, the wind was pretty much right on the runway. If any of you have ever flown, you will understand. You don't want a strong crosswind when you're trying to do a funny landing. But you come in and you fly at an angle like this and you set down on the one tire and you let the speed bleed off. As much as possible, you keep the nose up and on the one tire as long as you can, then down to the two wheels, because it was a tri-wheel plane, and then eventually you get to where you can let it drop down. And when it drops down, of course, it wants to turn sharply, but by that time you're going slow enough. When I first did it, I was coming in at stall speed. It was too fast, and I couldn't react fast enough. But after that, I know what to do. I probably would only give it a little bit of power to get the wheel back up on the two wheels like I did the second pass, and I wouldn't have to do a go-around. So if you don't like talking to people, join a group. Find a group at your church or just see if there's one in the neighborhood. See if there's anybody else that you might know who goes out and does visitations, whether it's door to door in the neighborhood, whether it's hospitals. I did visitations in a recovery type hospital. The people in there were in bad shape. And about all I could do was just let them talk. I wasn't good with, this is many, many years ago, I wasn't good with preaching to people and talking to people about God. I would mention a few things, but he was the one guy I stayed with. Was very bitter. It was hard. So I just sat and provided comfort. That's about all I could do. And you do what you can. Some people just are not ready. Okay. There's a bunch of people leaving. Most people normally leave or park on the weekend. I don't know why they're leaving today, but sometimes you have problems finding the next place to go to. And that's something that I have to constantly work on. I don't want to go through that rat's nest and walk on down to the trail where it comes in. So stop and think about all the things that you're doing. You should have, as a minimum, a tract with you. And there's different sizes, different scriptures. Find one you like. And I would focus on memorizing the scriptures in the tract, because you want to go over that. Hello. People walking in the park. So I'm going to let them go by. I don't know if I can sit down here or not. Since it just rained, but I'm going to go ahead and sit down. Somebody started their laundry, which is what I wanted to do, so I guess I got to wait on that. Got one little empty basket, so it should be one load of wash, one load of dry. Should be okay. Another rig pulling out. Another Class A pulling a pick-em-up truck. Well, I can still see rigs here, but I don't see as many, so. Get out of here, bugs. I had a big bug on my tent when I got up this morning. I don't know what kind it was. It was long, though. It wasn't, it was probably, about yay big, good size. It came in to get out of the rain from last night. Okay, so we stay on a high watch. We're going to shoot for between now and the 11th. One of the days is going to be a good matchup based on the calendar for, and I talked about this on my live broadcast, for the day the rain started. And I'm not going to go back and reteach that, but we know that it's on the 17th day of the second month. And they flipped the calendar by 6 months. That's why Rosh Hashanah was celebrated on Nisan, the 7th month. God has to be extremely patient with these people. And they flip it and then nobody complains. And we're going to find the same thing happens with Halloween. When I talk about that, it's the same problem. I don't know, about 700 AD, they moved it from the springtime to the fall. Put it on top of a Celtic holiday, a pagan holiday. You know, they've already moved the first of the year, so they moved everything else to line up with it, I guess. Christmas was the same problem. I mean, they celebrated Christmas, even though we know that's not Christ's birthday. They celebrated it there because it lined up with a couple of festivals that were going on at the same time, pagan festivals. You know, they were killing Christians, so if you could hide your gatherings, they didn't know what you were celebrating. That's where they came out with the fish, their symbol. What we have to do to get our message out and survive in these worlds. But we know too much now. We can tell when the devil's doing something, and we can see him working all over the place. That's why we got to get out of here. We're the restrainer. And Satan's anxious to get his people working. So keep an eye out. We may see things in the skies. We have I haven't verified it, but they said we have a full moon in the not full moon, a full eclipse on election day. If that isn't an omen, I don't know what is. 2 elections coming up. Will they steal it again? And they stole the last one. Satan's more powerful than individuals. The only way to beat him is to band together. We can't seem to do that. We're too scattered. We're too different. There's too many denominations. There's too many churches that teach different things. There's only one God. There should only be one type of group gathering, one teaching. But Satan gets in there and mucks it up. Again, like I said, that's his best offense. Muddy the waters. You want to fix our destroying the world problem that we've got? The pollution and the global warming and all that, you want to fix it? Just get your hands off, back away, let God finish off what he's doing, and then we're going to get a new heaven and new earth, and it'll be perfect. I know, it's hard to do, but that's the way it's going to end up happening no matter what we try to do. We can't stop this locomotive that's coming down the track. All right. Let me wrap this up. I've got, I think I have enough videos for the weekend. I've got to figure I've got a couple of close moving days. And I don't know what's going to happen. My problem is I don't want to go too far out because things are so dynamic around the world. They're changing on a regular basis. And you need to know. If you're not paying attention, you need to know. Keep prepping. Keep buying things. If you see them on sale, buy them. If you need them, buy them. If you buy one, buy 2. You can buy a lot more than that, but if you're running on a budget, like a lot of us are, you can't go in and buy $1,000 worth of food. And it's getting to where that's going to be what you can carry out in 2 bags. You won't even need the big cart. You can use the little carry cart. A loaf of bread for a day's wage. That's not too far away. China's threatening to take the United States down monetarily. I don't know why they're threatening, and I don't know why anybody would be worried about it. Our own government's doing the same thing. But China says that they are considering liquidating $1 trillion worth of dollars, flooding the market with it, causing ours to devalue. They do the same thing with gold. If you release a bunch of gold, it's called supply and demand. If the supply is short, the price goes up. If the supply is abundant, the price goes down. China wants Taiwan. If they do, they will have over 90% of the world's chip manufacturing, computer chips. They will dictate the whole world what to do, because everything is going to be controlled by them if that's the case. We just passed a spending bill here in our government to put more money into getting startup companies going, making the chips. You can't stop what our leaders in the past have done, and it's hard to reverse. We had all the technology here and we give it away because it was cheaper to manufacture over there. Nobody thought about what if they didn't like us anymore. And they're going to find that we have the same problem here that we did in the space program when I was involved. The satellite I was working on, go off on another rabbit hole here. The satellite I was working on was too big for the shuttle. They were going to build another shuttle, a longer version. Kind of like they did with the 747. They built a short version, then a longer version. Well, when the shuttle blew up, their funding was cut. And at that point, there was no way to launch our satellite system because it's the size of a boxcar. So what they ended up doing was give us more money and told us to go back in and rework circuits while they try to figure out what to do. Well, they finally decided that it was not practical to pay our astronauts to be high-priced truck drivers, which I've said all along. The shuttle program was temporary. It's just hard to get the government to make a change. And they go, well, we'll go back to just to single rockets, no people on them. I go, well, that's great. How do we do that? All the engineers that designed the original rockets are retired or dead or senile. They had to go to the Smithsonian and request their Delta rocket parts, bring them back and try to reverse engineer. And when they did, they found out, oh my God, these were flying bombs. The technology was just barely good enough to do what they were doing. They just barely got them working, and they were very dangerous. And they go, okay, well, we know basically what we got to do, but they had to redesign them. That construction's going on. Guess it's about time for me to wrap this up. But anyhow, they went back to single rockets, and that's when they came up with the three, where you've got the main rocket in the middle and your strap-ons on the side that you can jettison. That was practical. And of course, this is NASA doing this, so it's way too expensive. Government contracts always overrun, always cost more than they should, and are not very reliable. But they got all my satellites up there. I think there's 18, something like that. If we were to get into a war, though, they would shoot them out of the skies. They couldn't use an EMP bomb on them. They're designed to withstand that. The only way to take them out is to do what Russia did a year or two ago, where they shot one of their old satellites out of the sky. I've talked about that. Okay, let me wrap this up. think I have a couple of verses to put at the end. But if somebody were to come up to you and say, are you a Christian? What are you going to say? Hopefully, yes. But then, why would they ask you? Hopefully they could tell already. My tarp is covered in leaves, and so is my tent. I'm not going to attempt to get rid of them now, but I will have to eventually. Ropes are still taut. I'm going around checking them to make sure they're still tight enough. Something you got to do on a regular basis. Good rope, when it gets wet, stretches. Okay, I'm going down another rabbit hole. All right. Be safe, people. We're getting into some real tough times. We've got some high watch time. We got to get out of here soon. That's all I can say. We'll see you in the skies. God bless. Okay, I have some 3 Bible verses I just want to leave with you and tack on to the end of this. I may have given them to you before, I don't remember. Senior moment. But you can't overread the Bible. So I'm going to start in Romans 11:25. For I do not desire, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own opinion. That blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fulfillment of the Gentiles has come. They're waiting for us to get out of here. People are blinded until we're out of here. And then we hand off to 144,000. Hopefully the blindness is gone and they can see. And so all Israel will be saved, as it is written. I hope so, because it's certainly not going in the right direction now. Now I'm going to turn over to Galatians 6:9. Brethren, if a man is, that's not 9, that's 6:1, 6:9. And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all, especially to those who are of the household of faith. Be good to Christians first, but be good to everybody. Non-Christians will see it and want to know what they can do to get it. And then I'm going to look at, did I write down which one it was? No, I didn't. Another senior moment. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to read Psalm 63. O God, you are my God. Early will I seek you. Early in the morning. First thing you do when you get up. Early I will seek you. My soul thirsts for you. Do you thirst for God? My flesh longs for you in a dry and thirsty land where there is no water. Yeah, Israel used to be like that. Dry bones, remember? So I have looked for you in the sanctuary. Remember when Jesus, a young man, went back to the temple? He was in his father's house. Well, we don't have to do that, but we can go to a church where there's other believers. Look for you in the sanctuary to see your power and your glory, because your loving kindness is better than life. My lips shall praise you. Thus I will bless you while I live. I will lift up my hands in your name. My soul shall be satisfied. All that we do, all that we say, if we do it for God, it will be the right thing to do. always. But don't do it for God alone. Do it with God, for God. In Jesus' name, amen.